Dear friends, today's incident is extremely painful and instructive. Why? The body of an imam of the mosque was buried as a trust in a heap of garbage instead of in a cemetery. Then, when cries and screams were heard from it, and his body was dug out from the garbage, what happened that everyone quickly covered it with soil. And he used to tell me about religion. I was also a neighbor of Mufti Sahib. The second thing is that I was raised by Mufti Sahib because my father passed away in my childhood, because he loved me so much. He was not my real father, but I respected him even more than my own father. From childhood to youth, I used to call him Abba Huzur. He was a very lively person. One day there was a knock on the door of my house. When I opened the door, a servant of Mufti Sahib's house was standing there. Seeing him, I was surprised because he had never come to our house. Mufti Sahib always used to come to our house himself. When I saw the servant, he ran away quickly. Now none of his children were ready to give him a bath. Everyone was saying to you, "Come and give him a bath and take care of all the burial arrangements." Hearing this, I was shocked that I said, "Who is ready to give a bath to Mufti Sahib?" He said that I don't know, but now I feel very sorry for the death of Mufti Sahib. None of his relatives are ready to carry out this duty. Hearing this from his servant, I was amazed as so. I went with him to Mufti Sahib's house. I was sitting by Mufti Sahib's body and crying because I also love him very much. Another boy came forward and said that he was a student of Mufti Sahib. When he told me this, I was amazed. Why did Mufti Sahib's wife choose me for this duty? Then she said to me, "Son, you have to listen to me carefully." Mufti Sahib's wife said this in a secretive manner and gestured for me to come to another side. I was amazed as to what condition I had to fulfill. Hearing this from Mufti Sahib's wife, I was amazed. Firstly, her eyes were not filled with tears of grief, and secondly, she was saying this in a threatening manner. However, before today, I had always seen a very soft attitude from Mufti Sahib's wife. Today, with her husband gone, she was behaving very harshly. Anyway, I asked her what her condition was. She said, "Give my husband's body a bath in the dark. Promise me that you will not look at him in the light. I do not want to disrespect my husband." Hearing this, I was very surprised that I said, "As you wish it will be. I will not tell anyone about it." She thanked me. She said that I have kept the body in a place where natural light does not come, and most of the time it is dark. Just be careful. Do not turn on the light in the room by mistake. Otherwise, I will not forgive you. Respecting the wish of Mufti Sahib's wife, I went into the room and got myself used to the darkness. My eyes quickly adapted to the dark. Nevertheless, the water was also arranged, but I was surprised by this fact that Mufti Sahib's body was as cold as ice. There was nothing strange about it. The body is usually cold. But Mufti Sahib's body was so cold that when I touched it, I felt extremely cold, as if I had touched ice. Nevertheless, I washed Mufti Sahib's body with utmost honesty. But as I was leaving the room after the wash, my hand accidentally touched the light switch. Perhaps it happened because Allah wanted to show me the reality. As soon as my hand touched the switch, the entire room lit up for a moment. My eyes fell on Mufti Sahib's body, and the ground slipped from under my feet. I couldn't believe what I saw. I quickly turned off the light, and darkness enveloped the room again. But my footing was lost, and I was shocked. I began to wonder if what I saw was a dream, because the situation with the body of such a righteous person was beyond my understanding. I became petrified for a moment. From outside, I heard Mufti Sahib's wife's voice calling me to come out quickly. I came out, and she said, "I will shroud my husband myself. You all leave from here." Now I understood why she was doing this, but I didn't tell anyone. I also wanted to protect Mufti Sahib's honor. In my heart, I thought perhaps there was wisdom from Allah behind this matter. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Mufti Sahib's wife said she would shroud her husband herself. But as soon as the body was placed outside, many of Mufti Sahib's students arrived, wanting to have a final look at his body. She seriously said, "I don't want you to see my husband's face. If you don't believe me, read the will. It says after my death, no one should see my face." After the funeral prayer, she gathered everyone and said, "Mufti Sahib made a will before he died. You were with him in life. Do not leave him after death. I know it is not easy, but Mufti Sahib wished to be buried in the holy land of Saudi Arabia. No one could imagine how difficult it would be. We tried to fulfill his wish." Mufti Sahib's wife called me aside and spoke in a confidential manner, revealing her secret. Hearing this, I realized I knew her secret, but it was her weakness. The next task she requested was very challenging. I told her it was beyond my means because I couldn't imagine approaching the government. It wasn't an easy task, and I was just a common person. But her request was impossible to fulfill for anyone. Everyone began thinking about how to solve this issue because Mufti Sahib couldn't be buried without fulfilling his wish. Ultimately, we found a nearby cemetery, but it was a non-Muslim cemetery. However, Mufti Sahib's wife asked to temporarily bury him there as an entrusted burial. We agreed, although it was not easy for us as Muslims. We buried him there with the permission of the kind-hearted people. Nevertheless, we didn't anticipate the difficult and painful times ahead. No one could have imagined such events. It felt like fire was coming from the ground. We dismissed it as the heat of the weather. After burying Mufti Sahib, we returned home. My heart was beating fast, feeling something was wrong. I felt compelled to check the grave, but something was holding me back. At home, I told my mother the secret that Mufti Sahib's wife had asked me not to tell anyone. I never hid anything from my mother. After hearing my words, she said the truth would be known when the grave was reopened because we buried him temporarily as a trust. When the Saudi government permits, the grave will be reopened and Mufti Sahib will be transferred to another grave. She advised me to witness it and refresh my faith. Perhaps he would receive permission to be buried in Saudi Arabia, but it would not happen there. Red heart, red heart, red heart, they will get permission. But another obstacle will come that no one can overcome. Even if the whole world tries, they cannot bury him in that sacred land, because it does not seem to be Allah's will in this matter that he used to talk about peace. He believed in love, friendship, and trust. Some influential people tried and got permission to bury Mufti Sahib's body in Saudi Arabia. This news was not a cause of joy for his family, but I remembered what my mother said. Son, even after doing everything, Mufti Sahib will not be able to be buried in that sacred land. Coincidentally, on the same day, I had such a high fever that I could not get up from the bed. I couldn't. I saw his wife crying uncontrollably. When I asked her the reason, she said, Son, I can't tell you what happened. I tried very hard to protect Mufti Sahib's honor, but we went to the cemetery to exhume Mufti Sahib's body. When we reached there, we saw a strange sight. When the grave was opened, a big snake was sitting inside it. Even when we tried to remove it, it did not come out. It just sat there as if it was the guardian of the grave. Our efforts were unsuccessful. The snake started biting people. Finally, everyone decided to cover the body with shroud. I knew all his faults. I knew why his fate was to end up in a non-Muslim cemetery. He had turned to promoting polytheism, which is a great sin. Although I tried to stop him, he never listened to me. He was secretly working on promoting the agenda of non-Muslims, but he was my husband. Regardless of how he was, I loved him and felt sad for him. And she started crying uncontrollably. Allah has promised that he will raise people among those whom they belong to. Dear friends, how did this incident affect you? If you liked it, please share your valuable opinion in the comment box. And to get more such videos, subscribe to our channel.